the way these platforms are designed is to be addictive and is to push content which is controversial. So the trap which I think a lot of content creators then fall into is doing controversial content so that they get more follows and they get more things, and then they wind people up and they get trolls and what have you.
Welcome back to the podcast. Today we're joined by Gill, who is the content and communication specialist behind Jam Jar Gill. So welcome to the podcast, Gill.
Very much for having me.
Why don't you start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself and what it is you do at Jam Jar Gill?
So I am a conscious content creator, which is a bit of a mouthful, but what that basically means is it's what I refer to as the juxtaposition to the Kardashian influencer. I'm all about slow, conscious content, educational content around environmentalism and conscious consumerism and holistic health. And I also help other small businesses with that whole piece and just helping them to have an authentic voice online, really.
Brilliant. So the layout of the podcast is I've got a set of 7, 8 questions where I basically throw them at you, and they're designed to be short, sweet, and just get as valuable insights as we can. So if you're happy with that, I'll start with the first question. You sort of touched on the grain of it then when you answered, but the first question is around connection with your audience. So how do you build genuine connection with audience?
Well, I think, I'm a great believer in just honesty and authenticity, and you can use tools to make that happen and to make it easier. But fundamentally, it's making sure you speak in your own voice and you talk about the things which you hold value to personally.
So then the flip side of that, being an influencer working online, what's the sort of ideal brands that you like to work with in that same sort of vein?
So brands who connect with my values. If it's terms of products, oftentimes it's about featuring products, but I'm also open to, services as well, based industries. But it's people who are doing something which I look at and I go, wow, that's really cool. They're doing something. They really care about the packaging. They really care about the product. They really care about the sourcing. They care about things like how they pay their workers and all that side of things, and the suppliers which they use, and just the messaging which they're putting out into the world. And they're doing good in the world and they care about doing good in the world. Those are the kind of people I want to connect with.
And then to slightly pivot, the dreaded 2 word that's just a buzzword that everyone bangs on about, but it's obviously so relevant. Are you harnessing AI at all at the moment?
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting subject, AI, as I said to you on our email exchange, because I think the people who don't know about it are quite scared of it. I actually went to a lecture recently at Cranfield University, which is local to me, and there was a guy who was an AI expert, and he said, and I love this quote, and I'm not sure if it was his quote or someone else's, but he said, it's not that AI is going to steal your job. It's that someone who knows AI is going to steal your job.
Yeah.
So if you go, no, I don't want to be involved, I don't want anything to do with it, then I don't think that's the right approach. I think that's potentially burying your head in the sand, because this is the biggest pivot since the Industrial Revolution. I'm a great believer that you need the human being behind the computer, and it's just a tool. And it's an ever expanding tool, which is getting developed in all sorts of ways, all the time. But the way I look at it is, yes, I'm absolutely using those tools and automations in my business, but I'm teaching myself to get the absolute best results out of that tool, because I don't want to and I think the sort of bad rap that it has a lot are the kind of people who go, write me an email. And it's just like, yeah, that looks like it's been written by a robot.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite a skill set. to go back and forth with it. And I'll say if I'm optimizing a blog post, I'll go back and forth with it for 2 hours sometimes, really hammering into, I like that bit, I don't like that bit. Can you change that bit? Can we link that to a better source? Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we put in this keyword, that keyword? Can we also make it searchable for other AI engines? Because this is the way the search engine world is going, and all these sorts of bits and pieces, and tailoring it and like weaving it in and using it as a tool, because that's what it is. That's an entirely different thing to me to just going, write an email, give me 10 weeks of social media content. And then it's bullshit, honestly. So that that's my take on that whole piece.
What have over the past 12 months in growing your business in this changing landscape? What are the biggest challenges that you faced?
I think, it is the ups and downs of finding leads and making sure, for me, the real journey which I've been on this year is turning everything from, like, my goal for going into 2025 was to stop flying by the seat of my pants in business, because I think in a lot of ways I developed my business off the back of needing a creative outlet and wanting to have a space online to talk about the things I felt passionate about. And that was more about me doing what I would now call passion chasing than it was about necessarily serving customers or paying customers. The other piece which has really changed for me this year is really paying attention to the energy in versus energy out piece as well. Because, for example, I've decided to put my podcast on hold for now until I have the help in my business to move it across to Substack and build a community around it. Because the problem is with not just social media, but all the different platforms, you're often chasing these algorithms, chasing these numbers. And for example, in the podcasting world, and I know you're quite new to it, but I'm sure coming across this yourself, is that actually, if you go on YouTube and you go on iTunes and you go on Spotify, it's all great and you ping yourself out there. But realistically, you've got to get up to 1,000 downloads a month before they switch on the big advertising button in the sky.
Mm.
And that's incredibly hard to get to as a small base podcast. Now, to me, I was like, it's okay. I'm just seeing it as a PR exercise and a nice collaborative effort, and was okay with that. But it got to a point where I was doing all this quality content and then spending so much time, so much energy editing long form content. And then you wouldn't get that feedback because you're drowned in the algorithm. And what I now aim to do is kind of republish it, repackage it, put the long form content in a membership space on Substack and create shorter form, more like 20-minute episodes, which can go on Spotify and go on YouTube and probably will hopefully get more footfall in those arenas because they're shorter form, with the kind of premise and that being my shop front to come into the membership where we will speak in community about these subjects. And I think that's me taking the reins of something like that and going, hang on, I don't think I've ever had a problem with quality of content. I think I have it coming out of my ears because I have so much ideas, but it's actually now organizing it and making sense of it and making it streamlined and make sense to the rest of the world, not just to my head.
If you were to solve an impossible problem in the industry where nothing was a constraint, what would that impossible problem be that you'd love to solve?
In my industry, that's a challenging question. For I guess I just think finding a way for like solopreneurs to have, maybe, I don't know if I really go into the sci-fi space, to clone myself so I could then
Yeah.
run my business and all its different facets
That's a good
without
answer.
having to manage other people. Is that a good one?
Wow. Yeah. Do you know what? As soon as you said that, I was back on the vein of the AI, but I don't want to go back off a tangent there. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
It's
mean, maybe
parallels.
that's the way forward.
Okay. And then a pivot question from your experience of the influencer side of things. Do you
Mm.
feel like there is enough within the industry to protect influencers from online harassment?
I think you have to educate yourself. And I think you also have to have a zero tolerance policy. And I think you also need to be mindful of what you're posting as well. And to me, again, it leads back into the values piece as well. Because unfortunately, and this is one of the reasons, one of the many reasons I kind of got the big ick with social media this year, is the way these platforms are designed is to be addictive and is to push content which is controversial. So the trap which I think a lot of content creators then fall into is doing controversial content so that they get more follows and they get more things, and then they wind people up and they get trolls and what have you. Whereas again, I feel like I'm in juxtaposition to that in that, say in the eco space, there are people who are like eco warriors and really like making everyone feel terrible for how they're not thinking about the environment and feel guilty and you're doing bad and da 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 da. Whereas my whole attitude to it is this slow, kind approach of just trying to celebrate the small wins and trying to collaborate with people. I'm all about concepts, even though it's spoken about probably too much, but to coin the phrase of collaboration over competition and all that sort of side of things is very much my ethos. Now, that can go the other way in itself, in that some people might label me as some sort of Pollyanna, but that's not who I am. I'm very much a real kind of person, but and I openly say, I'm not perfect. None of us are perfect, but if we all do our bit, then I think it will make a big difference. So I'm not sure if that answered your question, but
No, I get I get what you're saying. It's because it goes back to like the first point you made is about like sort of context and how you connect with your audience. And if you're just, do it delicately and in an authentic way, then it sort of doesn't garner that negativity. You're not chasing
yeah,
the
I think that.
negative.
But there is also, there's lifestyle bloggers and things which I've followed over the years. And I remember this metaphor which Rachel Hollis spoken to, and she's someone who I've followed in the past. And she said she got advice in the early days. She was like, imagine if your social media account is like a party, and would you accept or tolerate someone speaking to you like that in your party, or would you ask them to leave?
Mm.
And that's the kind of like boundaries which you have to have, because like some people will leave trolling comments on their content or negative comments. I'd refer back to that energy in versus energy out thing again. It's about the fact that I don't have time for people to be horrible. If you haven't got something nice to say, if you want to have a constructive conversation, I'm here for it. But if you're just being a dick, then thank you. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah, Gill, I really appreciate you coming on today. You coming from a different perspective with your side of influencing, and I found it really useful to speak to you. I was meant to be on script and just grill you with questions, but I feel like it's a bit more of a conversation there. So I've personally enjoyed it. I don't know if it's as coherent for other people. Thank you, Jill.